Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of the Authentic Brandcast. Today we have a super topic related to authenticity and brand building, and that is your voice. Our topic today is how to own your voice and connect to your audience with intent. And my guest today is Katherine Beck. Hi, Katherine.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you here. And so Katherine is a voice actor turned into voice coach, and she moved from the US to Sydney. And Katherine, can you say a few words and introduce yourself? Tell us who you work with and what you do, so that everyone listening today and watching the replay knows what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I am Katherine Beck. I am a voice actor turned voice coach, entrepreneur of all sorts. And I moved from Hollywood with my big dreams for so many years as a kid of living that actor dream, of making it big in Hollywood. I somehow found myself moving to Sydney, Australia by a chance encounter of meeting this Australian guy who swept me off my feet. And before I knew it, I was married and moving halfway around the world. And that was a really interesting shift for me because when I moved here, all I wanted to do was fit in and make new friends and get myself started over here. But I found the more I tried to fit in, and I even tried to learn an Australian accent, which I ended up learning the Australian accent because I was an actor. But the more I tried to acclimate and sound like them and be like them, the less I felt like myself. And
Mm.
it wasn't even giving me the results I wanted. I wasn't making friends. I didn't feel any much more at home. So I realized very quickly that I had to really stay true to myself. And that's where I started to adjust and then find a love for Sydney and really start to make this my new home. But during that time, I realized that there was more that I wanted to do than acting. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I started out as a 12-year-old with my own business in my parents' shop selling jewelry, and I was very successful, made it into the newspaper, and I always had that entrepreneurial bug ever since then. So I remember I decided, you know what? I'm going to become an American accent coach because now I really understand the difference between Australian speakers and American speakers and their struggle with the actors trying to sound American so they can book US roles. So I set out to become an American accent coach. And I remember one of the things I did is I met with this guy who was in marketing. And he said, you know what? Why would you want to limit yourself to working just in Sydney when you could be working globally
Mm.
online? And I was like, ooh, what? And that really intrigued me. And that sparked my desire to become an online entrepreneur and share what I do with a much bigger audience. The thing with that is, earlier this year, I hit a roadblock where even though I was gaining success and momentum in working in my online programs for actors, I felt like I still wanted to branch out and do more, that there was a bigger vision calling my name. And I still felt like I wasn't doing what he had mentioned, which was really reaching a global audience. And that's when I realized, oh my goodness, I think I'm pivoting from just not just working with actors, but wanting to share my expertise with a whole new audience. There's so many people, especially in business, who in this digital world that we live in now, where all of us are now showing up online and communicating as ourselves, a lot of people really struggle with that, how to show up as the voice of their business, how to be their authentic self. And I became really passionate and excited to share my experience and my expertise with everyone to help them really own their voice and feel confident speaking, whether it's in front of an audience, in person, or online. So that's a little bit about me.
That was already a lot about you. This is awesome. And you know what? What you just said is like on so many levels, I can relate. Like when we moved from Germany to Canada 16 years ago, I was also trying to fit in, but I never got rid of my German accent. And now our kids, they help us how to pronounce the words the right way. But so what you just said with the online world, I think so much has changed within the last 2 years with COVID and everything. And we do our business online, and we can write posts and everything and share who we are with pictures and with captions. But I think the best way to make connections is really when we show up through like a live video, or like now we are creating a podcast. And as you said, like so many people are not used to it. They might be afraid of, I don't know really how this all works, or I don't like my voice. So I think it's so important to really like tune in to this, because it really is our number one selling mechanism right now, because our voice is our energy. And when we just talked, you said, I like to work with people that I go for coffee with. And that is because how we connect with someone. So can you share like what are typical challenges when when I go live? Like, are people usually afraid of their voice, how they sound, or like what is a typical thing that someone comes to you and wants some help?
Well, I think a lot of it is people are unsure or nervous to show up as themselves online. And I totally get that, because people look at me and they might think I'm an extrovert, but I am an introvert by nature. And even though I now feel very comfortable showing up online, doing interviews like this, doing my podcast, doing all the things online, it never was that way for me. In the beginning, I was also very shy and nervous and awkward showing up online, even teaching in person. As an actor, a lot of us are introverts. We feel more comfortable being a character and expressing ourselves in somebody else's skin. But it can be very exposing and awkward and confronting when you present your own self and you don't have that character to hide behind, right? So the number one thing is it takes screen time, practice. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So I get my students to get out there and start doing it. Not even if it's live, just recording yourself and watching back, so you can start to become aware of what's holding you back or what you're presenting to the world, and start to get more comfortable with that screen time. The more you record, the easier it becomes.
Yeah. You just said as an actor, most of them are more introvert. That reminded me when I was, I think 7, I wanted to be an actress. That was my number one goal when I was a kid. I wanted to become an actress and be famous. And I could not understand why my parents were not famous and didn't want to be famous. and it also reminds me when I think it was high school maybe, or middle school, there was a play, and I'm an introvert, like very much. And I was always afraid to speak in class. I would never raise my hand. I was hiding. But with this play, I thought, this is cool. I want to play this role. And it was exactly what you just said. I was not afraid to go up because I was playing a role. I was not myself. I could express myself in this role. And everyone was excited. And I was excited too, because I could do things that I couldn't do in real life. That was amazing. But then I thought, okay, if I can do it on stage, why should I not be able to do it in real life? So I was starting to reflect on this. So earlier we talked about the why the voice is so important. We talked about that your voice is an instrument. You shared about the connection between like there's mind and body. So what exactly is this instrument that we have, and why is it so powerful?
Yeah, our voice is like the messenger between our thoughts and our audience. So, how we think and how we feel, how we behave, all gets communicated via our voice to our audience. So, for example, if I were to say, I'm really thirsty, and I was going to say it excited, it might sound like this: I am really thirsty. But
Let's
let's
have a margarita.
say, yeah, let's have a margarita, right? So it's got a different impact on you when I say it with excitement. But if I was going to say it and I was feeling incredibly depressed, it might sound like this: I'm really thirsty. Totally different impact on your audience. So the way we think
Absolutely.
and how we feel can easily be received by your audience. And a lot of times we don't think about that when we show up and communicate with the other person. So I always think of the different connections of getting our message across and being our authentic true self. I do think of it like a musical instrument, our voice, because we can bend and shape and mold the voice to create the outcome that we want. So if I want to be loud, I can be loud by opening up my mouth. If I want to hold back, I can hold back and close up my mouth shape. So you can shape your what we call articulators, which are things like your lips and your tongue and your lower jaw, to share our message or not share our message. So you have a choice. You can either allow yourself to be vulnerable and let people in, or you can hold back. And we make that decision every day. A lot of us hold back and we put up this facade of what we think people want to see, creating this professional voice that we think is going to be the thing that people want to hear, but in effect, it's not. They
Mhm.
really want to connect with you. And when you put up that wall, it's very hard for us to break through. So for me, it's five things: it's connecting to your mind and really understanding that your thoughts really do impact how you speak. It's connecting to your body so you can have that strong foundation for your voice. It's connecting to your breath because your breath supports the voice. And it also is the thing that's going to allow the emotions and your thoughts and your feelings out to the audience. It's obviously connecting to your voice and all the different elements and tools that we have to enhance our voice. But most important, it's connecting to your audience on that human level where we can feel like, yeah, we want to have a cup of coffee with you. We want to get to know you. We want to work with you.
Yeah, and this makes so much sense. I just when you said that, I remembered a former colleague, and she started her own business, and I know her. I know her private side, her personal side, and then I also know her business side. And every time she is online and she does like an Instagram live or anything, I can hear the difference in her voice. And I wouldn't say I like her less, but I find her less authentic.
Mm,
I know exactly. I think, girl, you're just putting on a mask. And
yeah.
I don't think she does it on purpose, but I can feel it. And it doesn't feel that I don't get this emotional connection, because I know exactly now she's just talking, I don't know, differently. It's weird for me to see that. And I can think that other people would sense it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. We can
yeah,
sense it. We don't know, we may not know what we're sensing, but we can sense it.
yeah.
And it's one of those things. It either turns us on to wanting to work with you or it might turn us off.
Hmm.
And the more we can tap into that awareness of how we are presenting ourselves through our voice to our audience, and that we have the ability to shift that to influence our audience to get the results that we want, that's magical, you know? And when we can get our audience to make those transformations that we truly want, whatever they may be, through our voice, it becomes so rewarding for us as well.
Hmm. So you mentioned like those 5 things that we need to build our voice or own our voice. And you mentioned body. Like, is there a specific, like, should we maybe stand or sit? Is there a specific body movement, or should we dance before we do something? How can we implement the body? I think for me, I'm always active and doing things. So for me, body is important. Like, is there a specific thing how to connect with the body in terms of voice?
Yeah. Well, it's grounding yourself, feeling comfortable in your own skin, in your body. Obviously, if you're standing, you've got more energy. If you're sitting, you can still have that energy. It just requires a little bit more effort. But it's about alignment, alignment in your body. So for example, if I was like this, you can hear how it affects my voice
Oh, yes,
automatically,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Or if I was talking like this, you can also hear that it affects my body. So it's about finding that alignment in your body posture, right? Where it sets a nice foundation for the voice to come out in a very strong and powerful way. So that's what I mean about, setting up the body, connecting to your body, grounding yourself so that when the voice comes up and through your instrument, you're presenting it in the best possible way.
Yeah. And I know that breath is important, but are there specific ways like we have to breathe? Do I breathe in before I talk, or should I breathe out? And then should I do a breathing exercise even before I start? Like, is there a secret behind that, or like something that should be done?
Well, what's the interesting thing about breathing is it's an automatic response. We naturally do breathe, right? All day
Mhm.
long, and we don't think about it. But when we do think about it is sometimes where we get ourselves in trouble. How should I breathe? What's the right way to breathe? I heard this way is the right way to breathe, or is that way the right way to breathe? The key is breath support. You want to fully support your breath so that your voice carries strength. Because again, we can hear when there's weakness in your voice and we're losing that stamina. We want that breath to be the driving force to carry our voice to the other person, whether or not they're in the room or across the computer screen. The breath support is still really important. And one of the areas where people really get it wrong is you see this shallow breathing where the shoulders raise. That's not really going to give you that fully supported breath. It really comes down to this lower belly breathing, dropping down into your diaphragm. And it's more of an expansion. You feel sort of widening in the body and in your rib cage as you drop into your breath. So you can check in with your body and notice before you show up live or do a podcast or whatever, to check in with your breath and make sure you're doing that nice, fully supported breathing, easeful breathing at your own pace, not forced. And doing just a little bit of breathing right before you show up live, for example, to communicate in whatever capacity is really key to helping calm those nerves and feel grounded and ready to show up as your true, authentic self.
Hmm. So yeah, while you were talking, I was trying to breathe in and out, and I was so aware of it that I thought I can't breathe. It's stuck in my it's stuck in my lungs, but it doesn't go down to my belly button. um, when you focus on it, it's not that easy anymore.
It it really is about awareness, and when we start to become aware, at first it's really hard to notice, right? The more you do it, you start to gently find that awareness and understand that transition of something like that. For example, the shallow breathing to more of that deep belly breathing. And again, it's an easeful motion, it's nothing forced, it's very natural, it's what we were designed to do. So it's really requiring less effort than more.
Hmm. So what can we do if, for example, we're invited to hold a webinar, for example, and then I'm super nervous, and of course, people can hear it. Do you have any tips on how to overcome that, or are there any things that we can do prior to that? Is that also breathing, getting aware, maybe, I don't know, doing specific routine?
Yeah, so definitely if you're someone who still feels uneasy and apprehensive and nervous showing up, for example, for a webinar, let's use that as the example, you definitely want to give yourself a few minutes. Give yourself at least 5 minutes to center yourself, breathe. You can warm up your articulators. Like I said, those are things like your lips, and your tongue, and your lower jaw. Tongue twisters. We all know what tongue twisters are, right?
Yeah.
Right? You know what a tongue twister is? You
Yeah.
can do that to warm up your articulators and get them ready to go. You
Oh.
can warm up your voice, a little bit of humming to get
Well,
the voice ready to go and grounded.
that reminds me, I used to play piano, and before we started, I always had to warm up my fingers. Da 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 da. So maybe doing something like that.
Exactly. You have to think of this as your vocal performance. This is what actors do. We warm up before a performance, right? So, even though we're entrepreneurs, that doesn't mean that we don't have to warm up as well before our vocal performance. So, if your vocal performance is a webinar, you should allow yourself 5 to 10 minutes to warm up the voice. So it's warming up the brain, the body, the mind, your voice, and the connection to your audience before you go live so you are ready to go. That's going to really help calm those nerves. And if you feel those nerves pop up in the moment during the webinar, the best thing to do is breathe. Go back to your breath, check into your breath, and that'll start to calm those nerves in the moment.
Mm, okay. Um, I will remember that. But usually for me, it's only just the first few seconds, and then I'm good. I want
Good.
to touch. I want to touch on identity. So I think many people, especially as immigrants, we have an accent, and I have been trying to work on my accent. Um, Although some people say, "Oh, I really like your accent," I'm trying to minimize it and to, I don't know, have less of a German accent. So, and I know that you shared in the beginning you did that too, and it changed the way it changed almost your identity. So, what
Mhm.
are your thoughts on that? Because somehow we need to, let's say, get rid of the accent so that people understand us, because there are some accents that are really hard to understand. But how can we do that and not lose who we are or the connection to who we are? What did you do?
I think the important thing for everyone to understand is you don't need to get rid of your accent because that's part of who you are. That's part of your history. What we want to focus on is clarity, meaning that the other person can understand us. What I tried to do because I was an actor was I wanted to master the Australian accent. So I wanted to sound and be like Australians. But what I realized was the more I tried to sound and be like an Australian, I started to lose my identity because I thought this was my belief that my upbringing didn't equate to the Australian accent, which is untrue. Any country is a melting pot of all these different cultures and ethnicities and experiences and history. Everyone has their own unique voice. And that's a beautiful thing is that like a fingerprint, we all have our own unique voice and our own unique story to tell. So I think of it more about enhancing your voice most definitely through clarity, but also opening up the space, using those articulators to create an open, warm, inviting sound that the other person can understand. It's all about allowing the other person to understand us. And that's using all of the different tools within our voice toolkit to make that happen. So it's less about getting rid of your accent or your identity, and it's more about opening it up so that more people can understand you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I still remember, and I still have those situations where I want to talk to someone and there's a receptionist and I ask for the person and the person says, who? And I repeat the name and I say, who? No, sorry, this person doesn't work here. I said, no, I know he works there because I talked to him yesterday. He said, so, and then finally, when I think, then she repeats the name and she said, oh, you mean, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes, that's what I said like 5 times. um, this is, lucky me, like our kids, they start to teach us how to say it in Canadian. So,
Oh, wow, yes.
yeah. I always say, you know what, kids, it's when you hear someone have an accent, you know that this person is speaking more than one language, and this is a good thing.
It's a great thing. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And I think that's the really cool thing as well about growing up one place and then moving someplace else. Our accent, our voice changes over time. We don't have the same voice as when we were kids, right? It develops and shifts as we get older and the different experiences that we've had. So if you move countries, you're bound to notice that there is going to be a shift in your accent. It may be subtle, for others, it might be more extreme, but there will be a shift because subconsciously, we all want to fit in, right? And so, how we fit in often happens through our voice. So, whether we realize it or not, we start to slowly shift slight elements of how we speak to fit in.
Yeah, totally. And then this reflects also in the culture because now, so our kids are bilingual. And so we are from Germany. Dirk and I, my husband, we speak German at home. The kids, of course, with their friends speak English, and then they are in a French immersion school. So they are growing up with 3 languages. But what happens is that because like it's just Dirk and myself here in Canada, and so they are more and more adapting the Canadian lifestyle, and I feel they are losing the connection or the cultural connection to their German side and their German heritage. And with that, they also talk less in German. So now we are at a point where we talk German to them and they answer in English. So, and with that, I feel like they are losing this connection piece, and that also goes into the identity and who they are. So I think like language and voice goes kind of, and the culture goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is huge, and I think also how you show up and how you talk. Like when we talk about our heritage, Dirk and I, like, of course, we are proud, and you can hear that in our voice. And for the kids, it's almost embarrassing. So when they when they share it, it doesn't sound like that. And that goes back to your identity, what we talked about, that your voice is really showing who you are as a person.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, culture definitely shapes how we speak. It's part of our history, our voice history. And, uh, for example, in the US, a big part of our voice history is freedom of speech. And that directly impacts how we use our voice in the United States. You can hear generally people are very loud and open up to share their voice and their thoughts and their opinions freely with their audience or who they're communicating to. Why? Because it's one of our basic rights as Americans is freedom of speech. Now, when I moved from the US to Australia and I was very loud, you can understand that in another culture, maybe they might receive that in a different way because, for example, in Australia, they're not as loud, right? So they tend to close up their articulators and the sound's a little bit more held within the body. So if you walk out and you're saying, "Hey, how you doing?" People might look at you funny over here because they're not used to that. Our culture really affects how we communicate and how we relate to the world. So again, that comes down to awareness. And when I talk about, these days it's a digital world, and so you have the capacity to speak to a global audience. And the more you can be aware of different cultures and how people speak all around the world, that they may speak differently to you, and that's okay, the easier it becomes to create that connection with more people all around the world, which is so very exciting.
Yeah, it is super exciting. I am, in terms of what is possible now in business and connecting with people, I think the last almost 2 years were incredible.
Mhm.
I think there's so much possibility and opportunity now. I think we had never, ever had that before. So this is super cool. Katherine, do you want to share, like, how can people work with you? Like, do you offer any programs? Like, could I hire you to help me? And what exactly would you help? Can you share about how you can help people to train their voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do one-on-one coaching. I've got some coaching packages, as well as I've got a new program, which I've got a wait list happening for that now. The next intake will be in January of 2022. And that's all about really stepping into the role as the voice of your business and owning your voice, that authentic voice, as we were speaking about. So you can head over to katherinebeck.com/waitlist to join the waitlist, or you can catch me on Instagram, send me a DM if you're interested in private coaching. That's at Katherine_Beck_. Or I've got a podcast, which is called the Voice for Business Podcast. And that's a really great place to get to know me and hear my thoughts and tips on showing up and standing out as the voice of your business.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. So for everyone listening today or watching the replay, please follow Katherine on all those different channels. Also check out her program, which will be starting in January. I think that will be amazing. So Katherine, is there anything else that you have on your heart and would love to share today to help people like really step into their voice before we end our brandcast for today?
Just remember that your voice needs to be heard. You're going to change the world through your voice. And the moment that you can let go of those fears and the thoughts and fears of judgment and really show people honestly and truthfully who you are, that's the moment where you're going to change the world.
Awesome. These are beautiful words to end our brandcast for today. Thank you, Katherine, for joining me. That was absolutely a pleasure. I've learned so much, and I will practice breathing now. And all the other things. Awesome. Thank you very much, Katherine.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.